The giant ship floated in space like a crystal mountain. Its walls sparkled with strange lights that changed colors as the alien crew worked inside. Commander Velthar stood at the main window, looking down at the small blue planet below them. His skin glowed with soft purple light, and the crown-like spikes on his head moved slightly as he thought. "Look at them," he said to his helper, pointing at the tiny rockets trying to leave Earth's atmosphere. "So they can barely get off their own world. Our files say they only learned to make fire 1,000 years ago in our time." Velthar shook his head. His people had been traveling between stars for millions of years. They had seen hundreds of young planets like this one. The pattern was always the same: find a new species, teach them the basics, and help them join the big family of space travelers. Far below on Earth, Dr. Kim Ji-woo stood in a field of golden, wheat-outside Seoul. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but those eyes held secrets that would shock the aliens above. As Earth's top expert on ancient mysteries, she had been chosen to meet these visitors. Her radio buzzed with worried voices from presidents and kings around the world, but she ignored them. Instead, she looked at the old stone blocks scattered around the field. To most people, they looked like simple markers left by farmers long ago, but Ji-woo knew better. She had spent years studying these stones, learning their true purpose. The aliens in their fancy ship had no idea what they were really looking at. A small craft broke away from the mother ship and came down through the clouds. It landed softly in the field, and a door opened with a hiss of strange-smelling air. Commander Velthar stepped out, and the humans gasped. He was 3 times taller than any person, with arms that reached almost to the ground. His purple skin rippled with patterns of light that seemed to dance across his body. "Hello, young people of Earth," Velthar said, through a device that turned his words into human language. His voice was deep and rich, like thunder rolling across mountains. "We come from far away to teach you about the big universe. We will help you grow and learn, just like we have helped many other worlds." The crowd of humans whispered among themselves. Some were scared, others excited. But Ji-woo just smiled and walked forward. She bowed the way her grandmother had taught, her showing respect without fear. "Thank you for coming to visit us," she said in a calm voice. "We are happy to meet you and learn about your people." Velthar nodded, pleased with her politeness. Most young species were either too frightened or too proud when they first met galactic travelers. These humans seemed different, more mature than he expected. He pulled out a small device that looked like a metal flower. It opened up and began scanning everything around them: the soil, the air, the humans, and the old stones. Numbers and symbols appeared in the air above the device, showing Velthar what his scanner found. At first, everything looked normal. The humans had the right amount of metals in their blood. The air had the gases he expected. The soil was rich and healthy. But then the scanner pointed at the stone markers, and Velthar's eyes went wide. The stones were not just rocks. They were giving off energy, the same kind of energy his people used to power their greatest machines. The patterns of energy were complex, following rules that his best scientists had only figured out recently. But these stones had been here for thousands of years, long before his people had even thought of such things. "This cannot be right," Velthar whispered to his aide, a smaller alien with silver skin. "The scanner must be broken. These readings show technology that should not exist on a primitive world." His aide checked the device and shook her head. "The scanner is working perfectly, Commander. Those stone markers are definitely producing advanced energy patterns." Velthar looked at the humble humans standing before him. They wore simple clothes and had kind faces. They looked exactly like every other young species he had met, curious but backwards, eager to learn but knowing almost nothing about the universe. But the stones told a different story. And as he looked more carefully at Dr. Ji-woo, he noticed something strange. She was not surprised by his scanner readings. In fact, she seemed to be waiting for something. "Tell me about these stones," Velthar said, trying to keep his voice steady. "How long have they been here?" Ji-woo tilted her head as if thinking about how to answer. "Our stories say they have always been here, as long as humans have lived in this place. We think they might be older than that." "And what do your people believe they were used for?" For just a moment, Ji-woo's eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. "We are not entirely sure," she said carefully, "but we think our ancestors were more clever than most people believe." Velthar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Something was very wrong here. These humans were supposed to be simple and young, but the evidence was pointing to something impossible, something that would change everything his people thought they knew about this little blue world. 3 days had passed since the aliens first landed on Earth. Dr. Kim Ji-woo now stood inside their massive ship, looking around at walls that showed moving pictures of stars and planets. The room was huge, with creatures from many different worlds sitting in a circle around her. Some had too many arms, others had skin that changed colors, and a few looked like walking trees with glowing leaves. Ji-woo tried not to smile as she looked at the star maps on the walls. They looked almost exactly like the secret charts hidden deep in Earth's most protected libraries, charts that most humans were never allowed to see. Commander Velthar sat in the biggest chair, his purple skin now showing patterns of yellow light. He spoke in the same deep voice, but now it sounded like he was talking to a child. "Please tell us about your people's past," he said slowly. "We want to know how you grew so fast. Most species take much longer to reach your level." Ji-woo nodded and touched a small device in her hand. Pictures appeared in the air above her head, showing old stone structures from Korea. The aliens leaned forward to get a better look. "These buildings are more than 5,000 years old," she explained, pointing to tall stones arranged in careful patterns. "Our ancestors made them for reasons we are just starting to understand." The stone circles looked simple, like graves or meeting places. But when the alien scientists used their tools to study the pictures, they found something amazing. The stones were placed in exact positions that matched the movement of stars and planets. They were like giant computers made of rock, designed to track things in space. A creature with silver skin and 4 eyes made a gasping sound. "These are not simple monuments," it said in a voice like ringing bells. "They are advanced astronomical calculators, but your people built them thousands of years before they should have known about such things." At that moment, another human appeared on a screen in the room. Park Min-ho was a scientist back on Earth, speaking to them through their communication system. He was a thin man with thick glasses and gentle hands. "I would like to show you something interesting," Min-ho said. He held up what looked like an old bronze mirror, the kind that rich people in ancient Korea used to see their faces. The mirror was green with age and covered in strange symbols. Min-ho pressed something on a small box, and suddenly the mirror's surface began to glow. The reflection disappeared, and instead a 3-dimensional map of stars appeared floating above the mirror. But this was not just any star map. It showed not only the area around Earth, but distant galaxies that were so far away that even these advanced aliens had only recently found them. The room became completely quiet. Some of the aliens stopped breathing. Others made worried sounds in languages Ji-woo could not understand. Zorquin, a creature that looked like a giant insect with crystal wings, stood up from his chair. His voice shook as he spoke. "This object is older than our entire civilization's journey to the stars. How can a primitive bronze mirror show places we discovered only yesterday?" The aliens began talking to each other in excited whispers. Some pointed at the mirror, others at the stone pictures, and many stared at the humans with expressions of confusion and fear. Then Lee Hyun-woo, a quiet man who had been sitting in the corner, cleared his throat. He was a language expert who spent his time studying old words and their meanings. He rarely spoke up in meetings, but when he did, people listened. "There is something else you might find interesting," he said in a soft voice. "Our language, the Korean language that we speak every day, has words for traveling faster than light. We have terms for bending space and time. We have phrases that describe technologies for moving between stars." He paused and looked around the room at all the confused alien faces. "The strange thing is, according to you, we have never invented these technologies. So why do we have words for them? Why have these words existed in our language for thousands of years?" An alien that looked like a walking flower with too many mouths made a sound like wind through leaves. "Ancient languages sometimes have unusual words," it said, but its voice did not sound sure. "Perhaps they are just stories or dreams." Hyun-woo shook his head. "These are not story words, they are technical terms. precise descriptions of scientific processes, and they exist not just in Korean, but in Chinese, Japanese, and many other Earth languages, very old words that describe very new ideas. Jiwoo watched as the aliens looked at each other with growing worry. She could see them beginning to understand that something was very wrong with their assumptions about Earth and its people. Velthar's purple skin had turned a deep blue color, which Jiwoo guessed meant he was upset or confused. He stared at the floating star map above the ancient mirror, then at the pictures of the stone circles, then at the three humans who sat calmly before him. "This is impossible," he whispered, but his voice carried clearly through the silent room. "Young species do not have such things. Young species do not know such secrets." Jiwoo finally allowed herself to smile just a little. "Perhaps," she said gently, "you should reconsider how young we really are." The alien leaders gathered in their biggest meeting room for an emergency talk. Commander Velthar walked back and forth in front of them, his purple skin now dark with worry. Representatives from 17 different worlds sat watching him, some with many eyes, others with no eyes at all, but all of them looking scared and confused. "The humans are lying to us," Velthar said, his voice much different than before. Gone was the confident tone of a teacher meeting simple students. Now he sounded like someone who had discovered something terrible. "We used our strongest scanners on their planet. Under their cities we found machines that should not exist. In their old books we found math that even our smartest people cannot solve. A creature that looked like a walking crystal made a sound like breaking glass. How is this possible? Our records show they are babies in space terms. They should know nothing." "That is what we thought," Velthar replied. "But we were wrong, very, very wrong." Meanwhile, in a hidden room on the human ship, Dr. Choi Sun-hee sat before a communication device that looked ancient but worked perfectly. She pressed several buttons in a pattern that had not been used for hundreds of years. The machine hummed to life and a voice came through immediately. "Mother Base, this is Watcher Station Andromeda calling. We have been watching the Council. Ships approach Earth. Should we begin the revelation process now?" Sun-hee looked at her friend Yang Seokjin, an old man who knew more about Earth's secret history than almost anyone alive. His white hair and wrinkled face made him look like a simple grandfather, but his eyes held knowledge that spanned thousands of years. "The alien children have started asking the right questions," Sun-hee said into the device. "I think it is time. They learned the truth about their parents." "Understood, Mother Base. All stations are ready. We await your signal." Sun-hee turned off the communication device and looked at Seokjin. "Are we doing the right thing? They are not ready for this." The old man smiled sadly. "Children are never ready to learn that their parents have been watching them from the shadows, but sometimes they force the truth to come out by asking too many questions." Back in the alien council chamber, the mood had become very tense. Creatures from different worlds argued in languages that sounded like music, thunder, and breaking. Stones. Some wanted to leave Earth immediately. Others wanted to bring more ships and study the humans like specimens in a laboratory. Dr. Kim Jiwoo stood calmly in the center of all this chaos. She waited until the noise died down, then spoke, in her gentle voice. "You have been wondering how we developed so quickly," she said. "How you think we went from making fire to building rockets in an impossibly short time? Perhaps it is time we showed you something that our history keepers have protected for a very long time." She touched her small device, and suddenly the air above. Everyone's heads filled with moving pictures. But these were not pictures of Earth as it looked now, with its green forests and blue oceans and small cities scattered across the continents. Instead, the aliens saw Earth as it had been 50,000 years ago. Massive cities stretched from one horizon to the other, with buildings that reached up toward the clouds like crystal mountains. Ships moved through the sky like schools of silver fish, and some of them were clearly designed to travel between the stars. The alien representatives made sounds of shock and disbelief. Some fell out of their chairs. Others began speaking rapidly in their own languages, trying to understand what they were seeing. "This cannot be real," whispered Zorquin. "The insect-like creature with crystal wings. This shows your world as more advanced than ours is today. But this would have been when your species was supposed to be living in caves and hunting animals with sticks." Jiwoo nodded slowly. "You are right. This is what Earth looked like long ago. We did not develop quickly from nothing. We simply came, back to a world we had left behind. An old human man who had been sitting quietly in the corner stood up. Park Jin-woo was so elderly that he needed a walking stick, and his voice was soft and scratchy. But when he spoke, every creature in the room listened. "Each of your species has stories," he said, looking around at all the different aliens. "Stories about gods who came from the sky. Beings who taught your people to make tools, to grow food, to reach for the stars. You call them myths and legends, stories that your ancestors invented to explain things they did not understand." He paused and smiled, the kind of smile that grandparents give when they are about to tell children something important. "But they were not stories," he continued. "Those sky gods were real. They were teachers who came to help young species learn and grow. They gave gifts of knowledge and watched from far away as civilizations developed and flourished." The room became completely silent. Even the creatures who did not need to breathe seemed to stop moving entirely. "Those teachers," Park Jin-woo said softly, "were us. We were the ones who visited your worlds long ago. We were the sky gods in your stories. And now, after watching you grow up for thousands of years, our children have finally come home to meet us." The news spread through the alien ship like fire through dry grass. Every species began checking their own histories, and what they found made them feel sick with shock. The pattern was everywhere, clear as daylight once they knew what to look. For the bird-like Cathara remembered stories of windwalkers who taught their ancestors to fly between worlds. The rock people called Durrani had legends of stone shapers who showed them how to build cities that lasted forever. Even the plant-like Vegthari spoke of light-bringers who helped them learn to grow in the darkness of space. Every single species had the same type of stories. Helpful beings from the sky who came, taught important things and then disappeared. Everyone had always thought these were just old tales that had no real meaning. Commander Velthar sat alone in his small room, looking through his people's oldest records with hands that shook like leaves in the wind. His skin had turned a pale grey color, which meant he was deeply upset. The Jakari people were proud of their ability to make their bodies glow in patterns that matched the light of stars. They thought this skill made them special in the galaxy. But now he was reading about the first singers, mysterious teachers who had appeared to his ancestors long ago. These beings had taught the Jakari how to control their natural lights and sync them with the movements of distant suns. The complex math needed for this process was carved into caves that were older than Jakari civilization itself. "We thought we were so smart," Velthar whispered to himself. "We thought we discovered this on our own, but they gave it to us. The humans gave it to us when we were still primitive creatures crawling in the mud." In the main meeting room, Dr. Kim Minji stood before the group of shocked aliens. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, the type of person you would trust to take care of sick animals. As Earth's expert on alien life forms, she had studied every species in the room for years, though they were only now learning this. "We have been watching all of you for thousands and thousands of years," she said in a gentle voice. "When humans first traveled to the stars, we were young and foolish. We tried to control other species, to make them do what we wanted. This caused terrible wars and much suffering." She paused and looked around at all the confused alien faces. "We learned from our mistakes. We discovered that forcing people to change makes them weak and angry, but careful guidance, gentle teaching, small pushes in the right direction, this makes civilizations grow strong and wise." The walls around them lit up with new pictures. These showed secret bases hidden throughout the galaxy, on empty moons inside asteroid fields, floating in the dark spaces between stars. Each base was run by humans who had promised to stay hidden and watch over the developing alien species. Some of these humans had even left their bases and gone to live among the aliens, becoming part of their societies, while secretly guiding their growth. They had helped prevent disasters, stopped wars before they could start, and quietly shared knowledge when it was needed most. An old Korean man named Kang Do-hyun stepped forward. His hair was completely white, and his face was covered with deep wrinkles, but his voice was strong and clear. He spoke for a secret group of humans who had been making these decisions for centuries. "Your species were not accidents of nature," he said, looking directly at each alien representative. "You were our children, and we raised you with great care. Every time your worlds faced terrible dangers, giant rocks from space, deadly diseases, wars that would have destroyed everyone, we were there to help." He gestured to the pictures on the walls, which now showed human ships quietly pushing asteroids away from populated planets, human scientists working in secret laboratories to create cures for alien plagues, and human diplomats disguised as local species helping to negotiate peace treaties. We stopped thousands of extinction events. We prevented countless wars. We shared knowledge at exactly the right times to help you grow without making you dependent on us. The alien delegates sat in complete silence. Some had their mouths hanging open. Others were making soft sounds of distress in their native languages. A few had simply stopped moving entirely, as if their minds could not process what they were hearing. The truth was overwhelming. They had come to Earth thinking they were wise elders, meeting a young species that needed their guidance. They had planned to be teachers and protectors. Instead, they discovered that they were the students. They were the children who had finally grown up enough to meet their parents face to face. Commander Velthar looked around at his fellow aliens and saw the same expression on every face, the look of children who had just realized that the people they thought were strangers were actually their family members who had been taking care of them from far away their entire lives. The humans had not been the ones who needed guidance. The humans had been giving guidance all along, so carefully and quietly that no one had even noticed, until now. 6 months had passed since the Great Revelation, and the galaxy looked completely different now. The giant meeting room of the Galactic Council still floated in space, but everything inside had changed. Where once alien representatives had sat in positions of power looking down at primitive humans, now humans and aliens worked together as equals, or rather, as parents working alongside their grown children. Dr. Kim Ji-woo stood at the great window, watching ships from 100 different worlds coming and going, but now she could see human advisors on every vessel, no longer hiding their presence. The secret was over, and the galaxy was learning to adjust to its new reality. In one corner of the room, she watched a human teacher helping a group of young Cathara learn advanced mathematics. The bird-like aliens flapped their colorful wings with excitement as they finally understood concepts their species had struggled with for centuries. Nearby, human engineers worked with the rock people called Dur'ani to design buildings that could last for millions of years instead of just thousands. The changes went deeper than just sharing knowledge. The most warlike species in the galaxy, the fierce Krathos, had completely stopped fighting after human linguists showed them something amazing. Hidden in their ancient battle songs, the war chants they had sung for thousands of years, were secret messages of peace. Human peacekeepers had planted these messages long ago, waiting for the day when the Krathos would be ready to hear them. The Altarians had been even more shocked. This proud species had always refused to mix with other aliens, believing their bloodline was pure and perfect. But genetic testing revealed that their pure DNA contained gifts from human ancestors who had lived among them generations ago. The improvements to their immune systems, their longer lives, their resistance to radiation, all of it came from careful human guidance mixed into their evolution over thousands of years. Commander Velthar approached Ji-woo slowly. His purple skin now showed patterns of respect instead of the commanding colors he used to display. He had a new title now, Student Delegate, which showed his changed position in the galaxy's power structure. "I have been thinking about something," he said, his deep voice much quieter than before. "How long would you have waited if we had never become curious about those energy readings from your stone markers, if we had never questioned your true nature? How long would you have continued pretending to be a young species?" Ji-woo turned from the window and smiled at him. It was the same gentle smile that teachers had given to curious students for thousands of years, patient and full of understanding. "As long as it took," she replied simply. "When we first went out into the galaxy long ago, we made terrible mistakes. We tried to force other species to grow the way we wanted them to grow. We pushed too hard and too fast. This created anger and weakness instead of strength." She gestured toward the busy room around them, where humans and aliens worked together in harmony. "We learned that the best way to help children grow is to guide them gently and let them discover things when they are ready. Forced growth creates problems, but when children find their own heritage naturally, when they are mature enough to understand it, that creates real strength and wisdom. At that moment, Park Soo-min stepped onto the speaking platform in the center of the room. She was now Earth's main representative to the galaxy, but she spoke with the same humble tone that humans had always used. "We want everyone to understand something important," she announced to the gathered representatives. "We are not returning as your rulers or masters. We never wanted to control you. We have always been your guides, and we will continue to be your guides." She paused and looked around at all the different species listening to her words. "Some of you may choose to continue developing on your own paths. That is your right as thinking beings, and we will respect that choice. Others may want to learn from the knowledge and technologies we have gathered over millions of years. Both choices are equally good and equally valid." The reaction was immediate and positive. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together, helped by human mediators who understood both sides. Technologies that had been impossible dreams were becoming reality, as humans shared secrets they had kept hidden for eons. As Jiwoo watched the transformation around her, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The galaxy was no longer a collection of separate worlds struggling alone in the darkness. It had become what humans had always hoped it would be, a true family, reunited after a long separation. The great masquerade was finally over. For thousands of years, humans had pretended to be primitive while secretly watching over their galactic children. Now they could step out of the shadows and embrace their role as the wise elders they had always been, leading not through force or dominance, but through love and patient guidance. In the far reaches of space, monitoring stations that had been hidden for millennia began broadcasting a simple message. It went out in thousands of languages to every populated world in the galaxy, carrying words that many species had waited their entire history to hear. "Welcome home, children. Welcome home." The galaxy had its family back together at last.